we welcome in our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham. James, you want to weigh in on some of this Robert Sarver stuff here?
Yeah, I mean, we knew this was coming, right? That eventually they were going to come out with the case against him. I'm slightly surprised that the punishment wasn't more extreme because his actions over the last, what is it, like 2 decades are outlandish. And
Mhm.
I know plenty of people who have worked for that organization, who have been around that organization, that know things about what have happened, and none of it's good. So, I mean, on occasion, you get a bad apple. But you got to keep in mind that some of these guys, well, all of these guys are big business guys, right? And they're going to protect what is theirs and how things are managed. So, again, if you're going to throw Robert Sarver out for that, how many of these other guys have some skeletons in their closets that they don't really want out there either? And or that they don't want to be judged. And we do live in sort of the cancel culture age, where you could get canceled for something that maybe didn't seem like it was that big of a deal 10 years ago, but all of a sudden it does end up being a big deal now. And so I think these guys, when it comes down to it, they're going to protect what it is that they already own and they have. And sometimes that means that you're protecting a guy like Robert Sarver in order to protect yourself, and that's kind of the way it goes. I mean, that's the way it goes in business. And even like Mark Cuban, you guys mentioned him just a minute ago. He voted against like the forcing the Maloofs to move along, right? He voted against that, if I'm not mistaken. He's one of the only owners because he wants to be able to do whatever he wants to be able to do. Like, he doesn't want to put some restrictions or have some precedent set that can come back on him later on. And so I think a lot of that is what you're seeing here. I am surprised the punishment wasn't stiffer, and it wasn't 2 to 3 years or more than 10 million bucks. Because he has done damage. He's done damage to the reputation of the Suns, but also the NBA as a whole. And I think at some point, like, I know the NBA wants to send this money to charity, but how about restitution for people who were that were whatever it is, all the list of things,
Yeah.
yeah, of things that he's done. Like, how about you pay out some of those people because they didn't need to be put in those situations, and the league has created a culture where an owner can do and say what he wants and get away with it for as long as he wants, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it.
And what do you think about some of the things that I talked about? You kind of alluded to it a little bit, but you have great knowledge about all this. As far as because I think what everybody wants is Sarver out, like the public, the media and the public, and a lot of people, I shouldn't say everybody, want him out. There's so many steps that would have to take place, and they compare it to Donald Sterling, and that was almost a perfect storm, and there were so many things that had to go on, and the timing was right. That's the way that was allowed to happen. I don't know. And the key thing about that was it was allowed to happen without having to go to a vote from the owners. Because the owners say all this stuff, like you just said, Ham, I'm not sure they would have voted Sterling out if it came down to that. So they were able to take care of that before they got to a vote from the owners. But I mean, is it correct to say, like, hey, there are so many more steps as opposed to, hey, Adam Silver, just get him out the league?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a ton of steps. I mean, that would take a full vote, and I think it's what is 66%. You need like 2/3 of the league on board to kick him out of the league. You're just not going to get it. Like, that's the problem. You're just not. They don't want to set precedents. They don't want to make it so you can remove owners and put owners in and take owners out, and whichever way the wind is blowing at that time. And they certainly, like, again, how many times we heard, oh, people want Vivek Ranadive out. Well, that's never going to happen. He has an ironclad contract. Like, he's what you're going to deal with until either he decides he no longer wants to deal with it, or he passes it to one of his children and you're dealing with them instead. there's only a few ways for it to happen, and none of it is at the league level. And that's because he hasn't done anything that would require you to kick him out. Just because, he hasn't won, sure, that's a mess, but that's not an infraction that would get you thrown out of the league. So you just kind of got to deal with it. And in the Sarver case, though, like there's so many things, like the inappropriate behavior, just time and time and time again.
See, that's the thing that's really kind of like sticking with me is it's not like inappropriate behavior like at a club or just around people. Like this is at the workplace.
Yes.
That to me is where the conversation should change a little bit. We're talking about within the workplace. And that's the part that I keep getting hung up on over because every point that Kenny made about the process and everything that you're talking about the difficulty and all of this, it all makes perfect sense. But if and I understand that there aren't 30 pristine owners in the National Basketball Association. And I'm not even trying to rank like whether I think these people are good people or bad people. But as an owner of a company that I work for, I'm expected to have a certain level of respect and comfort when I come to work. Mm-hmm. And when that's eliminated, and it's eliminated by the owner, we've got a problem. And that's the part that I can't get past with Adam's remarks today. Yeah. Is you're creating an environment as the owner of this company that makes employees uncomfortable. That should be your job. And I know that's not how the commissioner of the NBA works, but that should be your job. It should be the job of the other 29 owners in the league.
You know what I would like to see is exactly what you're saying. In the next lawsuit against someone like Robert Sarver, go ahead and throw the NBA in there too. Mm. Go ahead and make them pay just alongside him. If they're going to allow for a hostile work environment, for a work environment where, all of the things that Robert Sarver has been found to have done in their investigation, a league investigation, that puts the league on the hook. If you're saying you can't do anything about it, okay, well then you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. So you go ahead and pay up too. That's fine. And in all honesty, like that's what should happen. Like if you can't protect the employees of your 30 franchises, what does that say about you? And you can't go around like there's going to be bad apples everywhere, right? I mean, here in Sacramento, we had a guy embezzle $13 million from the franchise. I'm sure that there has been, sexual misconduct against an employee here or there, but not against the owner. Like when it's the owner, like you need to be held to a higher standard. And if the league can't hold a guy to a standard and they are putting employees back in a hostile environment a year from now, or even a retaliatory environment, because some of these employees are still there. Mm-hmm. You thinking that Robert Sarver doesn't know who it was? A male employee that was doing a physical on him and he just decided to drop trowel. You don't think Robert Sarver knows who that is? That's out for everyone to see now. He knows exactly who that is. So wherever that guy works, if it's still with the Suns, like what's going to happen to that guy next? Yeah. So yeah, it makes a really, really bad situation overall. And I know like Adam Silver's hands are tied by this, but like maybe you should take it to a vote. Maybe you should have that conversation with your fellow owners.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking as I think about like PR here at this point and saving face. And I know he works for the owners, but in an ideal world, maybe if I was Adam Silver, I'd ban him for life and I'd put it to a vote. And if this thing came back around, you'd be like, you can't say I didn't want him out of here. It's the coaches, okay? It's the owners who voted, and I don't have no control over that. That's the way our bylaws are set up. But I banned the guy for life, and I said we need to vote to try and get him out of here. They decided put it on the owners, put it the onus on the owners. And if you want to somehow the votes get the public, people find out who voted for what, you can do that. Now, you could make the argument, and I understand the world that we live in. He could be writing his walkout papers by doing that. because the next time they have an opportunity to get him out, the owners will remember that and they'll say, no, we don't need this. He's not here for us. We're going to get him out of there. But, I mean, is that an option just to make sure you stay on the right side of history here if you're Adam Silver?
I mean, a 10-year ban. How about a 10-year ban? And then, like, at that point, he might as well sell the team. I mean, if he's not allowed to be around it.
That's a great point. Like, we're forgetting, like, most of these guys, not all of them, but virtually all of them. This is sports teams are a measuring stick. You feel me? You get what I'm saying? It's not your business. It's not where your chief source of income is coming from. So if you take away his ability to sit courtside for the Phoenix Suns in the NBA Finals or the Western Conference Finals, or to walk around as the big honcho during games, and to be in these leagues meetings and all of this status that you have as the league owner for something like 10 years or 15 years, or as Kenny said, lifetime. Oh, no, do you own the team? Just we're never going to see your face again. No one's good. Those guys aren't going to want to own a team anymore. You're taking away everything they want out of owning a team.
Yep.
That was a great point. At that point, you might as well sell.
Yeah, I totally agree. But also, I mean, we're not that far removed from, again, like the Dallas Mavericks going through they had that entire internal investigation about all the things that were going on in their franchise. These guys are not gonna go for this. They're not gonna put it's legal precedents. That's what you're doing. You're setting legal precedents. And so no owner is going to say, yeah, it's fine. Let's go ahead and do this now. This guy did this, and this. Let's go ahead and do it. Because they're all thinking, okay, well, what if this happens to me? What if I'm the next guy who gets rung up? And like a lot of them, I mean, not all of them feel that way, because a lot of them are good people. Some of them aren't, though. And, you know, they're always going to have it in the back of their mind that, okay, well, is there ever going to be a moment where this happens and I'm not going to be able to stop the snowball?
Yeah.
You know?
Go get your wife, James. We want to talk to an attorney.
Yeah.
James, what, if anything, do the players do here? And when I say the players, I mean specifically, we can start with, maybe it's the players around the league that can have something to do with it too, but let's start with the Phoenix Suns. You know, it's easy for me to sit up here in front of a microphone, however many miles away, and say that Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre should do this. It's easy for me to say that, but I know it's not always that easy to execute it, and they're dealt with different decisions. But is it a situation where we need to hear from Devin Booker? We need to hear from Chris Paul. They need to take some type of stand against the guy that owns the franchise they play for, and like what can they do in this situation to maybe force the NBA's hand or be on the right side of history? Be like, let's be perfectly clear. This is how I feel about Sarver and what he did.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, Chris Paul, as far as the league, is probably the second most powerful player in the league. So, I mean, he's like the president of the Players Association. So if he wants Robert Sarver out, he stands up with his 15 players or 20 players going into camp and say, we don't want to play for this guy. That's what he needs to do. But again, like, now you're telling the players that, like, you've got to take a stand, and you got to take it. But like, don't forget that Chris Paul didn't like that they had a 35 and over rule in the NBA where your salary got cut. You couldn't sign an extension past a certain amount of years after, I think it was 33 or 34, and had that rule removed so he could go get his money and go sign a longer term deal and get big cash on the back end. So like these guys, they have power. And if they want to use that power right now for something that probably should be used for, then that's on them. You know, again, if Chris Paul speaks out here, this thing changes very quickly.
Just for the sake of accuracy, Chris Paul's termed end, and CJ McCollum is the president of the Players Association. We made the same exact mistake yesterday. Two, Chris Paul's got to be thinking, how many damn stands do I have to take? Can I just Can I just go play basketball? Why do I always have to go take a stand for something? Why am I always mediating this stuff? Let's shift gears a little bit, and unless anyone had any more on Robert Sarver. Kenny and I started today's show, and you can please correct us if we're wrong. It feels like there's a buzz around the Sacramento Kings right now, and very different type of buzz in that it's positive. I think people are feeling really good. If nothing else, obviously you got to see the results. I promise you, I understand that you got to see the results on the floor. But man, it feels like there's a lot of positive buzz around the Kings right now, and an appreciation of the direction it appears they're going in.
I totally agree. I mean, you can't bump into Mike Brown and without like him just busting out in a huge smile and starting to laugh, and like just the whole vibe around the team is different. Like, I mean, you got a really, really good winning coach, and you've got two all-star level players to build around, and you got a young guy who could be the rookie of the year, and you got some nice additions in Kevin Herter and Malik Monk, and guys that people should be excited to see. And so, yeah, I think that there's a bunch of positive momentum. They've got away from a lot of the drama and a lot of the chaos. And I've said this before, it's a really good thing when your star is in your city more than a month before camp starts and is already there working out with his teammates and bringing everybody in, and everybody starts to filter into the gym 2, 3, 4 weeks early, starts having a good time, starts bonding. That's a big deal. And, the fact that Sabonis was over playing for his country, that's great too, because he's in tremendous shape. You can see it. He's getting a lot of reps in. But, to see Fox here, to have everyone in Sacramento, to have these guys going to things like the Kendrick Lamar concert together, that's a good thing, man. Because basketball, it's a family, and if things aren't right within the walls of the family, or you don't have a bond that's close and things go sideways, that's what you need. You need a tight bond, and the more they're around each other, the better it's going to be.
How is the dynamic with these guys coming back? I mean, you've seen a lot of different off seasons and times a couple weeks before training camp. These guys have been here for like a month and a half, and there's been so many of them. Is this the first time since you've been around that you've seen this many Kings players back this early?
No, I mean, this does happen, but I don't think we've seen a lot of players staying around Sacramento all summer. That doesn't happen. Usually it does come down to like the really young guys usually stick around and they're here all summer, maybe the first year or two. They spend the whole time here in Sacramento. It's when players, I mean, a lot of them like to, take their vacations, but also they have their home gym, that's something that they do that they've always done as like their workout regimen. And that's fine. But, again, this is a really new team. We talked about Monty McNair took over this team in September of, 2020.
Yeah.
So like 2 years ago. And there's, 3 players left on the roster from when he took over the team. Rashawn Holmes, De'Aaron Fox, and Harrison Barnes. That's it. So this is a brand new group, and you need to be together. You need to sit there. Oh, look at that. The Kings have officially signed KZ Okpala. That just came through while we're sitting here hanging out. That's official right now.
Wait, what's that mean? Oh, was he never signed before?
No, he wasn't signed before officially. No.
Was he one of the guys that didn't come to sign the contract?
Yeah, he hadn't been here. So I mean, that means he's here. And again, that's one of the guys that you're looking at and you're like, hey, KZ Okpala hasn't come through and signed his contract yet. I think what we're seeing though is that like
it's better for KZ than it did DJ.
Yeah,
shout out DJ Stewart, DJ Stewart era.
Yeah, I mean that it's certainly the DJ Stewart thing was very specific. Like Casey Okpala is going to fight for a roster spot. I'm actually writing on the small forward position right now, and like there's some heavy competition, not just for like minutes or for like starters or rotation, but that small forward position very specifically, like they're like a couple of these guys aren't going to make the team, and they're going to have to figure it out, and this is going to be some good competition. I was watching Chima Moneki film earlier today, and he's fun. Like, we don't talk about him at this point, but his game kind of reminds me a little bit of Miles Bridges. Like he's a high flyer. He's fearless. He doesn't care. He runs at the rim. Like, you know, he's got a lot of game. He can rebound. He can play both the 3 and the 4. This is going to be really crazy how they figure out this roster because, what do? You're bringing in a guy like Kent Bazemore, and you got a young guy in KZ Okpala who's 23 and has like all the physical skills, just really hasn't got an opportunity to play. Would you go with the older guy that, is coming off a really bad season? Do you go with a younger guy who has the body that you're looking for? Like, there's going to be some difficult decisions made in this camp.
Do you know if Harrison's around?
Yeah, he's been around.
Oh.
But I think probably for the last, week, maybe the last, 5 days. Yeah.
Okay.
We've seen him around.
Real low key. Haven't seen him around, but yeah.
Yeah, we've seen pictures of him. I mean, again, people should understand, we're not allowed in the building right now to go hang out and see these guys. So, I mean, we're kind of at the mercy of a lot of other people.
That's fair. Nothing started. It's technically the off season. You're going to be wishing you weren't allowed in about 12 days when you're driving to downtown Sacramento every day.
Yeah, when I'm driving 100 miles round trip every day. Yeah. Not looking forward to that. Haven't got that Tesla yet. Yeah. I definitely, look, this is that time of year where things are starting to build and starting to get exciting, and hopefully they're able to put things together. I mean, hopefully, that Mike Brown has a plan in place to really turn this thing around quickly.
I'm glad you started this conversation the way that you did, because we talk about us and we talk about fans and we talk about you get engulfed in this team and the pros and the cons, but you still try to guard your heart a little bit. But I love that you made a point to mention you run into Mike Brown. Mike Brown smiling ear to ear. Not too many Kings coaches in history are going to be smiling ear to ear. I got to imagine Mike feels good about where this team is at and what they're doing right now. I mean, again, obviously 12 days away from training camp, nothing has started, but the fact that we've got guys here, they're in there working out. Like Mike Brown didn't even know that these pictures were being posted on the internet and that we were all aware of who's here and all of that stuff. And he's just so, he's so just kind of buried into what they're doing each day. That to me, that can't be anything but positive.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't want to bash on any of the other coaches that have come through because I think everyone comes into the season positive. But there's something different about Mike Brown's spirit. He's just naturally, it oozes out of him this positivity. And, it's one of those things. I really do like the Dave Yeager era, but again, it was always unsettled. He had one team in his first year. His second year, he had 5 rookies. His third year, he was on the ropes from day one. So there was always awkwardness. The Luke Walton era, again, starts off so poorly and guys get hurt right off the bat and everyone's exhausted and the whole thing is spinning out of control. They start to turn things around and you get the COVID season. It feels like it's been a long time since just there's been normalcy and anything to be positive about. And, even the Yeager era, before that was the George Karl situation. And, you're just running these things into themselves, into the next one. This is the first, real refresh, reboot, but with a competent roster and a clear direction in a long time. Yeah. So, it's one thing to reset, to have a roster and have a new coach take over and you're kind of up in the air with what's going to happen with this player or that player. This one feels like it's It's pretty streamlined as opposed to a lot of the other years that I've covered this team.
Yeah.
A couple of things I want to add to that is James Ham, thekingsbeat.com, if you want more from him. He's not going anywhere. We're going to talk more Kings basketball when D'Lo and Casey return here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. All right. Roster. Who was it? Bogey was hurt, right? At the start of Jaeger's year? Bogey was out, right?
No, Marvin Bagley broke his thumb in the first game, at the end of the first game.
That was
And then
Walton.
De'Aaron. Yeah, that was Walton.
No, I'm sorry, Dave Yeager. What Dave Yeager's first year was that the year Bogey was hurt at the very beginning of the season?
No, Bogey came Jaeger's second year. Yeah, no. Jaeger's first year is
started her because that's how Buddy started.
Yeah, it's a DeMarcus year. That's DeMarcus's last year is Dave Yeager's first year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's when they get to like January, and Rudy Gay popped his Achilles, and you went with a veteran lineup. But again, you were coming off. I'm pretty sure that year's a year that Darren Collison suspended the first 8 games of the season. Like again, like chaos to start.
Really is one thing after the other.
Yeah, I mean it's always that way. I mean I'm really glad if nothing else the Rashawn Holmes thing figured itself out so early and kind of went away so early in the offseason. Yeah. Papa Giannis. Papa G.
Yorgos.
Giannis.
Isn't he only like 22 right now or something?
I think he's like 24, 25. And he's played really well. Like he has developed. He just wasn't like it not only was
lost. Like he looked lost on a basketball floor.
Well, that and he wasn't a very good dude. That's like the behind the scenes. It was like Vlade told me one time, and it wasn't about him, but like a lot of European players are angry Europeans, and that's what he was. Yorgos was kind of like an angry European that thought that he should have been playing a bunch and didn't like the way it was going and all that stuff. Yeah.
See, this is the stuff that like pisses me off about Bleacher Report and these like push notification sites is everyone in ESPN I think did the same too. Everyone was pushing out the quote that Donovan Mitchell wanted to be traded to the Knicks, like that he said that at the Cavaliers press conference. As I kept looking at that, I was like, why? Why would he say like what is the context to that? And is it like, yeah, he was asked about being traded to the New York Knicks. And then he followed it up with, yeah, who doesn't want to be home next to their mom? Like, I haven't lived at home since I was in 8th grade. I feel like there's some more context to that quote, but they pushed it out there as if Donovan is in Cleveland talking about playing for the New York Knicks. And it's like,
but the other killer about it, did he even say like he wanted to be traded to the Knicks? He didn't even say that, right?
Well, the quote's off of my screen. I don't know what the direct quote about New York was. I just see the follow up to what he said about who doesn't want to be at home next to their mom, and he talks about I haven't been home since 8th grade.
And he was asked a very specific question.
Yeah,
it's not like he just brought up the Knicks. Like, man, the Knicks. I
can't. This isn't a transcript. It's an article. Of course, he's speaking glowingly about Cleveland, but that wasn't mentioned at all. Yeah, I can't find the line about the Knicks, but it was not represented fairly at all by those sites. All right, we're coming back, guys.
Cool.
Live on the Odyssey app, you can watch the show on twitch.tv/ESPN1320 and youtube.com/ESPN1320 as well. KZ Akpala has signed his contract with the Sacramento Kings. I don't know what number that puts us at. Do we know how many guys are set for training camp now? We know that DJ Stewart was waived, which are they at 20 or are they below 20?
I mean, they're at 20, but who's officially signed in, who hasn't? Like, they have not given us a full list of who is officially signed yet.
But 20 is the number you go into camp with, right?
Yeah, 20 is a number, and that includes your two-way players. So, yeah, the plan was always, like, we knew Sam Merrill will be there, KZ Akpala, Chima Monecki, Kent Bazemore, Quinn Cook. I think Quinn Cook is one who hasn't signed yet. He hasn't been here yet. Matthew Dellavedova's been here for a while. And then, the guys that they already had. So, yeah, it's a big group.
They have to be here. Like, can't do this through the iPad and the little
DocuSign.
Yeah, we can't just sign it on the screen. Like, I don't know.
I was thinking that this morning when I watched now King Charles go get all angry with the leaky pen. And, like, he's so flustered and, he hasn't had any time to grieve or anything else. And he's, like, freaking out about this stupid pen that's leaking all over him. And he's wiping it off. He hands it to Camilla or whatever her name is. And she's like, oh, like, the pen is leaking. And I just thought, man, don't we have DocuSign now? Why do we have to have this? Like, shouldn't there be some, like, if someone just put an iPad and, like, hey, just sign right here on the box? That's what it seems like we should be at.
It's amazing how many times you still have to have an original signature. Like, yeah. I may or may have not just spent like $60 to overnight something to DC because they needed an original signature on a piece of paper. It's like, I got the email, just let me sign it. You'll have it back in seconds. No. You got to go drop it off at the FedEx and have it overnighted.
It's kind of I kind of like it.
See, because your old school ways.
People don't even learn cursive no more. Like, how are these young kids even gonna have a signature? They don't even know how to write in cursive. They don't know what a cursive Q is like.
Most people can't spell anymore because, like, it autocorrects and fixes it, so you never know that you spelled the word wrong. You just keep spelling it wrong, and it changes it to the word that you want it to be.
That's all that happens.
It's like we call them smartphones. The phones know you're dumb. That's what it is. The app knows that you're dumb.
Speaking of, did you see what the Queen Bee tagged us in on Twitter? And that dude there's a robot video, and that guy that was walking down the stairs with a robot, I want to punch him. I do. I want to punch him. Like, do you realize what you're doing? You think you're so smart. Everything's so great. Do you realize what you're doing? I want to punch him.
Nothing gets Kenny worked up more than robots.
Idiots.
You sign because he's scared of robots. That's essentially what we're talking about.
We should all be afraid of robots. Trust me. I hope I'm long gone before they take over, because it's coming. I just hope we're all live a healthy life. My kids live a healthy life, and we move on.
What if we got a robot at the 4 position?
It feels like we do. Feels like we do.
I can't tell if that was a shot at his personality or what that was. But
not a shot at all. Just he's just monotone. Just real. He looks like a robot. Like, he just goes and gets buckets. That's what he does.
Yeah, he's very Harrison Barnes-esque. Like, what do we call him? Congressman Barnes.
Yeah. Senator?
What's that?
A congressman and a senator here in the Kings lineup.
Yeah. I mean, they are both, like, very straightforward. I mean, that's going to be one of the interesting things about this season is, like, trying to draw out the personality. It took a little while with Davion, but I think Keegan might be even a little longer.
Davion has a big personality too. Like, I'm glad that finally is kind of started to emerge. I'm really glad he does that. The YouTube thing, and like he's, and then obviously the Trista Crick story is money, but like he's fun. Like this, I know the team sucks. It is historic. Like it's all right to have some cool guys on the team. Like I think that's what Davion is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that was the beauty of Tyrese Halliburton. The second you open his mouth, you're like, oh my goodness, what is going on here? Like again, like there's only two that I've ever run into that walk into the league like that, and it's C.J. McCollum and Tyrese Halliburton, where you're just like in awe of their ability to speak like to the media and to like be part of a conversation, sort of. Just like spectacular, absolutely spectacular.
No, Tyrese was a great speaker. I remember, I don't know if his rookie year had started. Maybe it had just been drafted. I'm not sure, but I listened to like a couple of podcasts, like they weren't even Kings podcasts. Somebody had him on it, and he was like, I was like, man, this guy can sell water to a well. Like he can speak. Like I like hearing what he has to say. So that's absolutely a strength of his.
Yeah. Yeah, he also talked everyone into buying Top Shots. I don't think that worked out, but that's okay.
Not exactly.
That's okay.
I'm gonna be completely honest. I still don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand what I'm purchasing. I haven't, by the way, I haven't. But in hypothetically, if I don't understand what I'm purchasing, collecting, nor why.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I can't help you. I don't know. One of the things that I thought about, guys, and tell me if I'm wrong. The longest playoff drought in pro sports belongs to not the Kings, but the Seattle Mariners, I believe. I think it's been 21 years since they've been in the postseason. Well, that's about to end. They're going to make the playoffs. And when the Kings start the season, they'll officially be the owners of the longest playoff drought in pro sports history. Well, not history, but current, the active longest
drought. Okay.
What is it? It's 16 right now, right? And I always say we can't get to 17.
Yeah, this will be the 17th. Yeah, if they don't make it. Yeah, that's not good.
Seattle's gonna make it, huh?
Yeah, Seattle's.
We always had Seattle to lean on.
Right.
Yeah.
Damn. Wow.
I mean, they can still blow it. I mean, come on now. It's Seattle. They're
pretty good, man. That's good.
That's the logo that you put outside the Golden One Center. The Sacramento Kings. Even the Mariners did it.
As I look right now, the Mariners, the Orioles are closest to them. They're 5 games behind the Mariners. So, they're going to make it.
James, when we first started this together, it was we started a weekly bit of, hey, James, will Buddy Hield be on the roster when the Sacramento Kings start? And that's been lost over the last little while. So I think we need to bring one back. And I think I've got the perfect one. James, will Monty McNair sign an extension before the Sacramento Kings season starts?
Man, I hope so. It's just been really quiet on that front. Every time I check in, the answer is like
is
no
that
movement.
Surprising though that it's quiet? Oh, so you're okay.
No, I've checked in and like there had been no conversations up until like, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. When was it? We were on the radio. Me and Kenny were on the radio and I checked in and it was nothing had moved. I mean, I would like to say that there will be some movement here, but it's just tough. It's tough. I mean, you're at a situation where, I think the team should do the right thing. And but that's not always what happens here. And they have so many other things going on. Like, I think, that's what people forget. Like, I've covered this team forever. I've never seen turnover like what we saw this summer. Yeah. So your entire media relations staff, except for like Avery, who was, who was in his first year and was an intern last year. Their entire medical staff, pretty much, their entire training staff, again, like the whole entire back end, the entire coaching staff, except for 2 people are new. Like the changes that have happened here are like crazy. Like if you want to blame the people that were here before, well, there ain't no blaming them. You just fired them all, or they walked away, or they left. Whatever it was, each individual person had their own reason for not being here anymore, or their own circumstance for not being here anymore. But at the end of the day, like, this thing is moving one direction and everyone seems to be pulling together. You should probably have the guy who is in charge of putting the whole thing together around for more than his final contract year. But that's just me.
So as we're talking about this, I'm trying to figure out if there usually is some type of person or buffer between that, but maybe not. Maybe not. Is this Vivek? Because the reason why I asked that is because it feels like the GM, there would be a president of basketball operations that would be the guy in between the owner and the GM. But I don't. Maybe it's just a feeling that I don't know if a lot of people have that. Like if Bob Myers is up for a contract in Golden State, I mean, I think that goes straight to Joe Lacob. It's not. There's nobody in between. Is that accurate, or is there somebody in Sacramento in between Vivek and Monty?
No, there's no one in between Vivek and
Is that
Monty.
typical? Is that how it is around the league? Because I was trying to figure out if other teams have that set up, and
I think
they do.
people get. I mean, it's different because there isn't like a defined. Everyone has a general manager. Everyone has a president of basketball ops or VP of basketball ops. Not everyone like builds their organization the same way. So, like the Kings, the last couple of years have had, you know, a GM and then 2 assistants or 3 assistant GMs to go with it. And then they don't really tell you like what the roles are of those assistant GMs. Like everyone knew Ken Catanello was like the numbers guy, the salary cap guy. But then after that, you know, what was Peja, what was Brandon Williams, like they all have different functioning roles. Now, when it comes to this front office, we always had the weirdness. It was Joe Dumars. It was kind of just hanging out there that we had no idea what he actually did or how powerful his voice was or anything else. So, and even then, the structure was set up so Vivek was at the top, and we had like a triangle situation where Joe Dumars was on one side and Monty McNair was on the other, and everyone reported to Vivek, not Monty reporting to Joe, who reported to Vivek. So like it's always been a little different the last few years. So yeah, as of right now, it's a much smaller front office group than it has been. You know, it's like way trimmed down from what I can tell. And you know, I don't know if that's probably a good thing. Less
It
voices
almost
in the
feels
room.
like it's a normal operation right now.
It does. Well, I think that's because, you know, like if anyone ever gets a chance to talk to Monty McNair, first of all, he's really bright, and he's a big football fan. He's a big fantasy football fan, but he also he just has kind of like an easygoing way about him, you know, and he doesn't. He went to Princeton, right? Is that where he went? And I think it's the same with Jeff Petrie, but Petrie, it's 2 totally different people. I mean, like he was definitely he's a football player, and you know, so Monty's like a pretty laid back guy, and you know, Wes is different. Like it's a different feel than it has been for a long time. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just totally different. Like I enjoyed the Vlade Divac era. I enjoyed like Peja coming over and talking, and people thought, you know, he's just his sounding board, or he's just like it's nepotism. It's just his buddy. But Peja's a bright dude. You know, he was a fun guy to talk to. Like great conversations with Peja. You know, I had him on the podcast quite a few times. So yeah, this one's just different. It's they're definitely not out in front of the media nearly as much as we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I like that. You know, I like the structure. It seems like, and I'm not taking any shots at anybody before or anything like that. It just seems like everybody's handling their business right now. You know, I think everybody understands what the situation is. There's not much that can be said. There's not much that can be done outside of the actual wins and losses that is going to change people's perception or attitude towards this franchise. So let's just focus on what we can handle. And that's everybody doing their job. Monty McNair doing his job, getting the right players in place, Mike Brown getting the game plan ready, and the players working on your game. Do your job. Ain't that what Bill Belichick always say? Do your job. I feel like that's what's going on right now.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good thing. And I think this has been a much busier offseason than it feels like. Because again, when we talked about all those changes on the backside, well, you also had to hire a new head coach and everything else. Like Monty's got a lot done. Like he's completely rolled the roster again. And, you're coming back with, I don't know, what is it, 6 or 8 players that were from last year's roster, but a good portion of the roster is different, is swapped out. Your whole coaching staff swapped out. All of these other departments swapped out. So it kind of feels like it's set up for someone who's going to be there long term. That's what it feels like. Like everything's starting anew, and it feels like that at that point, that's when your general manager should be the guy who's going to be the one who's going to be there for a long time. Because you don't want to keep doing these changes, like all of the internal changes, like those are jarring. I mean, there's a reason why we're getting, like KZ Akpala, his press release today, but we haven't got press releases on so many others, just because there's so much turnover and change and stuff. So yeah, it's not super easy to manage the whole back end of this thing.
In your very extensive time in covering numerous coaches, with so much to like, how do coaches lay this out? I don't want to ask you specifically how Mike is going to lay this out, because obviously we don't know yet. But when you have so much that everybody looks at this Sacramento Kings job as a project, and that's a fair assessment of what this is. It's a project. How do you structure training camp to where it's not like, okay, guys, we've got to wipe the slate clean. We're starting completely over as professional basketball players today. Like, how do coaches approach, these coming days headed into the start of training camp, and how do they lay this out?
Yeah, so I think the one thing that people should know is, like, when all these players are out there doing their thing right now, the coaches aren't allowed. Like, there's very strict rules into how many players can be on the court at one time, how many assistants can step onto the court, whether like it's all very structured by the league. And it's so the players actually have an off season, and they're not mandated that they have to be here or there, or that that they're going to be coached. Like once the coaching window opens up, like we'll have media day. I think it's on Monday the 26th. The next day is training camp, and that's when it truly starts. That's when like the coaches are all on the court breaking things down. Now that doesn't mean that they're not having conversations with players, that they're not that players don't already have like playbooks, and that they don't have like like flashcards to start learning all of the different names and nuances of Mike Brown, because every coach is different. But it really does depend on the coach, right? And returning coaches, they usually have like this, they have such a huge leg up because they've already got their lingo, all their language in place, and their basic play sets in place. So when they get to training camp, you're getting some guys up to speed, but you got a whole bunch of players who are helping with that process, who are like working with their teammates, like, hey, this is what that means. And that's why I think that they have brought in a bunch of guys that have played for Mike Brown in the past. So that's when, you got a guy like Dave Yeager, who they opened camp in year 3. He had the young roster the whole year before. And the day camp opened, he's like, okay, guys, get your track shoes, because we're going to just do nothing but run the whole time. And they're like, what are you talking about? And you got guys like Iman Shumpert who were like, what is happening? Why are we running so much? And you got to game 1 and you realize why they're running so much. Because like he already had all of his stuff in place, but this is who I want us to be. We're going to be this team that sprints. And so it's a little different when you're starting fresh, because you do have to teach a lot of these guys like what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah. Man, maybe we should ask this earlier, but I'm asking anyway. Kings start the season 2-6. Do you think that this group of guys would be mentally and emotionally tough enough to get through that and still say, hey, we still got plenty of time left in the season? Or they would just break down because of the tough start?
No, I think 2-6 is fine. Like that's not going to be a problem. I think if we get to we get to, 20 and 35, then it's going to be like, here we go again. I think that's what you're trying to avoid. You're trying to avoid that major, like if it's over at the All-Star break, then first of all, changes are coming. That's kind of like there should be a shirt that says that changes are coming.
Put it on a
Because
shirt.
AC.com. Coming
Yeah.
to kingsbeat.com.
there we go.
Jesse, put it on a shirt.
Put it on a shirt. Yeah. So, I do think that there is like a positivity to this season. I think there will be a longer leash than normal because you're not just going from one coach to another. You're realistically going from like 3 decades of offensive minded coaches to the first defensive minded coach maybe you've ever hired. And I think that that's a big deal because historically speaking, the Kings know that they're not going to be very good, and there's nothing worse than a boring bad team. So if nothing, you should at least be able to put up a bunch of points so people will come watch because it's fun. Even if you're going to lose, at least be fun, right? Well, I don't feel like that's what this team is about. You're going to have some growing pains.
No.
Got him again. It got him again. That Auburn internet.
It's always so funny.
And the crazy thing is, like, the picture, it's 4K, like it's perfect. And then Ham just freezes out of nowhere. Ham is frozen at least one time. At least one time per show, like for the last week. It's for the last couple of weeks. It's amazing.
Cal like streak going on with.
Oh man,
that one, like there was no reason. There was no reason for that to happen, like at all. Like no one's here. It's just me. Yeah. You know what? Maybe my freshman in high school did just show up and did just like everyone just went upstairs and got him video games and froze me out. Yeah.
It's just so funny because it's just everything is perfect. There's just no issue at all. And then all of a sudden, there goes Ham. Down goes Ham.
Gone.
I'm sure whatever you were saying as you were frozen was really, really good. But that will stay as off the record as the happy hours with James Ham over at thekingsbeat.com. Go become a subscriber at thekingsbeat.com. Become a premium subscriber over at thekingsbeat.com. Subscribe to the podcast as well. We're ramping up. All three of us are ramping up our Kings content in a major way as we get closer and closer to media day and closer to the start of training camp. If you missed